Well, hello there. Welcome. If you're new here, I'm Joshua Shaffron, and this is the show that's committed to unleashing your BYSS superpowers, your because you said so superpowers, so that you can take control back over your life and finally have that perpetual prosperity as you. And let me make this clear, as you and only you can say, as you define it, as you judge it to be, in terms of like the way that you know whether you've had that perpetual prosperity, the success that you seek, as you judge it, as you measure it, and as you say it's supposed to look. So today and every session here, walk with me and imagine enjoying the peace of mind that comes from finally making a meaningful impact where you know with 100% certainty and 100% confidence that you were put here, that you're doing what you were put here to do. And that's without burning out, without selling out, and without, what I mean by selling out is sacrificing your integrity or your values. And definitely, without having to ever settle for less than you envision for your life ever again. All right, so with that, let's get into today's workshop. So today, we're diving in to the second workshop where we're going to be going into, and if you missed the first workshop, go back and look through whatever the channel is that you happen to be watching or listening to this on. Go back to the syndicated platform and listen to the previous workshops that have been leading up to it. But if you're aware of this, what we're looking to do right now is we're creating an opportunity here where we're now bridging the gap between what it is that you're learning, that discovery zone, and actually being able to put it into action, to live it. And so in our previous sessions, we talked about my favorite quote from Morpheus, which is, sooner or later, you're going to have to realize, just as I did, that there's a difference between knowing the path and actually walking the path. And so what we're talking about in this set of 3 workshop stacks for this week that we're diving deep on is the bridging the gap between learning what to do and being able to effectively put it into action so that you can live it, so that you can get the same kind of results and successes that a master gets when they're putting it into action. That you can get the same kind of results, that you can actually live it. And so that what we're talking about here and what we've been talking about all along is the learn by doing framework, right? And we know that we've been digging into, and if you'll recall from last week, from earlier in the game, that we've been talking about the zero factor in the previous session, which is right here. And so this is the zero factor, and this is moving into the mastery zone right here of the mastery zone in terms of the strategic, tactical, and specific information that you need to be able to execute your online business model and start to see it through. In today's session, in today's workshop, what we're going to be diving deep on is the WMN compass. And that's the, for bridging the gap of your, what we called your outer game goals in terms of when you start to think about your action journey. and start to think about, all right, what are the things that I have to do? What are the specific executables that I have to make sure that I'm taking into consideration and making sure that they are ready to go? What are the specific things that need to happen in order for me to create the right kind of results for my online business? And so what I promised is that today, what I was going to do is dive deep on a specific tool, a specific resource that you can use to create the ongoing specific application. And it's what we call the WMN compass. And so in order to kind of give you the primer for the WMN compass, what we have to talk about in the beginning is what I call the great straight line hoax, okay? And the way that this works is that we think that in order to have success, or what we get tricked in, we get lulled into believing, is that success is a straight line. In other words, if we're down here and we want to get to up here, we believe, in fact, that success is going to be a straight line. Or at least that's what we've been told in terms of the various methods and ways that we can be looking at these things in the online world, where we start to get lulled into believing that it is a straight line, that it is quick, that you can do it overnight. And the thing to remember is that if an expert, if a master of executing these things can do it, it has become a straight line for him or her simply because that's the journey that they've already gone through. Does that make sense? Meaning that they've already gone through the learning curve of knowing the difference between learning what to do and actually doing it. Make sense? So when we're talking about learning what to do and successfully putting it into action, you need to realize that there's a gap. And here's the thing that you may or may not start to realize and be aware of. It's that what we can get stuck in is the bright, shiny object syndrome, where we start to see things and we're saying, well, I want to go here, and then I go here, and then I'm going over here, and we're taking all these actions and we are doing all these things. But in essence, what we're doing is we're doing a lot of the same actions in a specific area. And we're not making a whole lot of progress. If our goal is to get to up here, only what we're doing is we're doing a lot of this, and we're doing a lot of this, and we're doing a lot of this down here, we don't know what's going on. And we don't know whether we're getting any closer to having the success that we want to have up here. Does that make sense? And so what ends up happening is that we start pursuing, we see a great idea and we get excited, right? And all of a sudden that great idea, we get excited and we go, oh, yeah, that's it. Now, then we get excited again, and then we do another tic-tac, and then we get excited, and then we get excited, then we get excited, then we get excited, now we're over here, now we're over there, right? And then all of a sudden, we feel in the moment, we feel excited, we feel optimistic, and yet we're working our asses off because we're working our asses off down here in this neck of the woods, right? And so what we don't start to see and what we don't start to notice is the fact that we're not making any bit progress closer up here. And so this is the first tool that I want to give you to start to show you how you can stay on course, how you can create the process that you want to create. So let's dig into that for a second here. And let's talk about the WMN compass, because that, in effect, is what we're looking to create. Okay? And the WMN compass is your tool, your resource of entering the mastery zone, of learning to master things as it relates to your goals of your action journey from the outer game in. Does that make sense? So that's what we're talking about in terms of your outer game in. Now, what we're talking about here is the way in which you can go through that. So the first thing, and here's some key points that I want to make sure are absolutely clear right now as we start to journey our way through this. And let me put myself on camera here so that you can start to see this as well. And so here's the point of this is that, first of all, and I'll go through each one of these individually, but the first thing to take away from this is that success is a process, not a destination. Success is a process, not a destination. In other words, your action journey is a process. And the reason why the process is important is because you're not going to get it done in one fell swoop. And you need to prepare for the learning curves as they start to come into play. Yeah? All right, so the learning curves are simply, let's get rid of that double exposure there. And so the learning curves are what you need to prepare for and be realistic about as you're starting to bridge the gap between where you are right now and what you'd like to be able to do, the capabilities, the skills that you'd like to be able to have to put into action for yourself so that you can see the results that you want to see. So this is what I mean by the straight line approach, and that success isn't a straight line, that we can get lulled into believing that success is a straight line. But the first time through the journey, because of learning curves, it's not going to be a straight line. It's going to be a zigzag process. Now, you can always get there. You can start off where you want to be from wherever you are right now, and you can get all the way up to where it is that you say you want to be. And you can, in fact, get there if you'll take it in incremental steps. And if you're not trying to quantum leap your way there in one fell swoop. And you'll be willing to accept that journey, if you'll be willing to go through that process and check off that success is never a straight line. In other words, you're always going to be tic-tacking. You're always going to be zigzagging your way to that journey in this process, which means that you're always going to be off course. That in fact, you're going to be zigzagging as you're doing it. And what you need to come away from, and this is going to really help you, is that you need to stop thinking of the tic-tacking or the zigzagging as good or bad, right or wrong. The thing that you need to start to become aware of is this bringing me closer to where I say I want to be or further away from it? That's the only thing that matters in these circumstances. So what in effect you're going to be doing is you're going to be doing a series of small gaps and then bridging those gaps. You're going to create a small gap that you're capable of bridging, and then you're going to bridge the gap. And that's how you're going to be able to incrementally work your way through and tic-tac your way through and get to some place that you've never been before, that unprecedented bigger future. To be able to boldly mold those unprecedented bigger futures is about doing it in incremental steps and taking an inventory of where am I right now in relationship to where it is that I say I want to go. And that's the only things that matter. So that's the final thing, is that are we creating the gap and then bridging the gap to get from where we are right now to that ultimate, unprecedented, big, bold, molded, bigger future that we say that that we've never lived on a consistent basis for ourselves. That's what we're trying to accomplish here. Okay? And so let me zoom out here for a second. And yeah, perfect. Okay, so now we are in the midst of the WMN compass. So if we superimpose the journey of tic-tacking your way there, let me choose a pen that's going to show up here. Let's do a nice dark blue color. Okay, so if what we've been doing is this kind of stuff down here, and we've been taking all these actions and we're tic-tacking, we're trying something new, and we're doing the next thing that comes along, and the next thing, and the next thing. Well, then we're not taking inventory of where it is that we are and where it is that we want to try to get to, or that we're committed to getting to on that ongoing basis. Does that make sense? So this is why I say that you always want to start with a process-oriented goal first, rather than an outcome-specific goal. Because what ends up happening, and when we get lulled into, and when we get stuck in this type of a situation, and when we get, like we're all over here, and we're taking all these massive actions, and we're zigzagging, and we're tic-tacking, and we're doing all this crazy stuff, and we're taking all this action, what we're trying to do is we're judging ourselves based on all of this action, based on this down here of where we are right now, or basically plus or minus to a greater degree, this mess over here. All of this right here, right? But what we're doing is we're comparing where we are right now and all the hard work and all the heavy lifting, all the specific actions and activities that we've put in to get us here. And we've been working really hard. We've been working our ass off to try to make some stuff happen, right? But when we compare to where it is that we want to be, which is way up here, well, now we're off course by a mile, by miles and miles and miles, instead of it just being like the next logical step. And when we think about getting there, from way up here, that unprecedented bigger future from where we are right now, something that we've never been able to experience on a consistent basis before, that we're trying to achieve, it's too far away. So now what we're doing is we're judging ourselves, and we're saying this doesn't work, or maybe I'm just not cut out to have a successful online business as I think I should be able to have, right? And so that ends up starting to really wear us down mentally, and our confidence levels, our certainty levels. Now we're like, well, this is supposed to work, and we've been told that if we just did these techniques, if we just tried this thing, that we could get up here to where we wanted to be on the subjects of what? Our marketing game plan, our web plan, our technical game plan, our implementation plans for that, and of course our traffic plans, that we should be able to do that. Well, the expert has already gone through the learning curve to get us there. And so what we're starting to see firsthand is that we need to start with a process goal rather than an outcome-oriented goal only. Okay? So up here is the outcome that we're looking for, the ultimate outcomes that we're looking for. But where we are down here, having not yet gone through the learning curves, is that we have to be all right with and comfortable with the fact that we may, in fact, need to tic-tac our way to that, and we need to be okay with the learning curves, and we need to be okay with being off course until we've mastered the learning curves to get from where we are down here to the way up here to where it is that we're trying to get to that we've never been before. And so if we're starting with the process goal first, rather than saying, well, shit, I'm not where I want to be at the outcome, and comparing the outcome to where it is right now and trying to do it in one fell swoop, what we're doing now is we're saying process only type goals, meaning that what we're saying is that for this particular circumstance, for this moment in time, what I'm going to commit to is these activities over this period of time, and the outcome doesn't matter. What matters is that I follow through on the process that I set forth for myself. What matters is that I complete on that I see the results. And this is what I was talking about in our last session, where I was talking about permission to fail, giving yourself permission to fail so that you can operate on a process-oriented basis rather than the outcome-oriented basis. Now, we are going to, once you get used to this, and in fact, you're going to switch what the outcome-oriented goals are. So really, a process goal still is an outcome-oriented goal, but your outcome that you're going for is the process of getting into the habit of taking those specific behaviors and actions on a consistent basis and taking inventory of that. And that's the outcome that you're looking for. So you're not judging yourself based upon whether you're here or here in one fell swoop. This is no longer the outcome. So this is all about the setup, if you will, for the WMN compass. And the WMN compass stands for what's working, what's missing, and what's next. W for, well, let me zoom in here. Right? W for what's working. Missing, or M, for what's missing. And then N for what's next. Okay? And you'll notice that really these are all questions that you're going to get used to asking yourself on a regular basis. What's working, what's missing, and what's next. Okay? And there's a specific reason for both the order of these questions to keep yourself on course, and there's a specific reason for the type of questions that you're asking yourself and the format in which it is. And I'll break that down so that you have a really clear understanding of what that is. Also, there's a specific reason for the time frames, or the way that I've mapped this out in a zigzagging process, or this spiral, if you will. Okay? So let's, let me just kind of zoom in on this for a second here. And you'll notice, well, here, let's do it this way so that I can actually do both at the same time. Bear with me here. Okay, so here we are. And what we're doing here is the WMN compass. And the reason why I call it a compass is because It's true. It's giving you the ability to point to your true north. And if the true north is in fact what you're trying to accomplish up here, where it is that you say you want to be, that you've never been through before, that you've never successfully accomplished, then that's your true north. And so your compass, the WMN compass, is how to tic-tac your way to that true north position, to that bigger future that you're looking to create, and how to stay the course in between. So what's working is this right here. That's the blue dot of what's working. Then what's missing is this down here. And then what's next is the number 3 over here, right? So if we zoom in a bit and we talk about the first step as what's working, this is the methodology by which you can tic-tac your way to the success that you want to see. And we've shown you here that the question of what's working is point number 1 on your tic-tacking scale in blue. And then point number 2 is what's missing, and that's in orange, right? And then point number 3 is what's next. And that's in purple. What's next is in purple. So this is your compass to get you where you want to go. Now the key to this whole thing, you'll notice, is that it's a series of tic-tacs. It's a series of zigzagging your way there, of always being off course, but eventually being able to get there. So what we're talking about is in terms of the tic-tacking your way there, what we mean is, okay, so this is the zigzag, and this is how the journey would look, and this is not in a perfect world either, but let's just hold out the process, so that instead of doing what you were doing over here and not really knowing what it is, and doing all this and never stopping to use a compass to take inventory of where it is that you are right now, and then what's the next step that you want to try to execute to bring it to the next point on the journey of where it is that you're trying to go. All you're trying to do is do it in an incremental way. And the only thing that matters is, did the executable that I took action on bring me closer to where it is that I want to go, or further away from where it is that I said I want to go? And if that of the where I said I want to go is up here, right? Did the action or the executable that I did down here, did it bring me closer or further away? See, you're still tic-tacking, you're still doing all of this work down here, right? You're still zigzagging all over the place. You're still going back and forth, and you're still making this happen. The difference is that now what you're going to do is you're going to take an action, and you say, oh, did that bring me closer to where it is that I say I want to be, i.e. up here, or further away from where it was? Well, in this case, it's kind of a little bit further away, or linear or whatever. And so you go over here to what's working. And then you go to what's missing and what's next. And then what's working, what's missing, what's next. What's missing, what's working, what's next. And so in this fashion, what you wind up with is you're still tic-tacking, but you're using the compass to guide you on a regular basis, so that you're not finding out when it's like too late that you're down here or that you're way off course or that you know, the things that you've been doing are having you be much further away from where it is that you say you want to be. Now, here's the thing. This still indicates kind of a straight line if you're looking at it from this perspective. You know, it's still kind of a linear path, when in reality, it's not going to be that linear. It's not going to be like sometimes what's going to happen is you're going to tic-tac. Here, let me clear this off. Sometimes what's going to happen is you're going to make phenomenal progress really, really fast. And so you're in the right move, right? And you wind up like somewhere up here in the game. And then you try something else. And you take a step backwards. Still further ahead than where you started off down here. And then you say, all right, well, it's not that it didn't work. It's not right or wrong. It's, did this bring me closer? Did what I do here bring me closer to where it is that I say I want to be, or further away? Well, in this case, it brought us, in the next increment, it brought us a little bit further away, but still not as bad as we were. Now, if we're taking these in bite-sized chunks, and you'll notice that the space between these are rather tiny in nature. And I'm going to recommend that the space between you taking the inventory on the WMN compass is in fact going to be the ideal time. At least what I would suggest that you do is start with a week interval. The temptation is to do it sometimes minute by minute, or definitely day by day of taking inventory. And I'm going to suggest that you don't do that. That you, in fact, will take the inventory on a weekly basis to start with. Because a week is more than enough time to see what's working, what's missing, and then take the next step in light of what's next. And then see next week, did I have enough time to implement it? Did I have enough time to create the next step of the equation? Or am I, kind of rushing things there, right? So underneath these kind of time frames, what you're looking to create is, in fact, the inventory, or taking notice before you're too far off course. Meaning that instead of waiting until you've executed a bunch of stuff and you're off course by a mile, or you don't know what's working and what's missing and what's next because it's too confusing, it's too overwhelming, you got too much stuff going on, right? Where you just don't know what you don't know. What you're going to do is you're going to take inventory on a weekly basis so that you're not getting too far off course. So, like, let's say the first implementation is a week. So at day 0, let's call that's the beginning of the spiral down here at day 0. At week number 1, we're going to start to take an inventory and say, all right, what's working, what's missing, and what's next. In between, and what's next is going for this next week. So this next week of evaluation for the compass of what's working, what's missing, what's next. All right. I think that is clear enough and probably overkill. So let me break down for you the way that I recommend you doing this on a weekly basis. First off, I recommend that you start with what's working in terms of writing it down on longhand, analog, either on a notepad, or if you have notability like I do here, and you like to take notes digitally, do it. But I would recommend that you don't type this out and that you don't just do it in your head. Write it down so that you have time to reflect on it and use it as an exercise to brainstorm. And you always want to start with what's working, because the tendency, first and foremost, is to say, what's broken, what sucks, everything sucks, none of it's working, this is like terrible, I can't figure this out, and life sucks and I'll never figure it out. And that can be the temptation, that can be the overkill in your head, is that you're like, it's human nature in the beginning, because our Fred stories, our Fred stories have been conditioning us to believe that, it sucks to believe that we're trapped. And so what we're asking ourselves is, damn, I wish there was a way out of here. Why am I stuck? Why am I here? What went wrong? What's all this shit that's going on? And what's the reasons why I'm stuck in here? And if you ask yourself those things first, you're going to be focused in on the problem. You're going to be focused in on what's the reason why, and the excuse to stay stuck, like why it is that you're stuck. And that's a common problem. That's a common issue when we're dealing with things like that in this ballpark. Okay? So what you want to start with is what's working. And you always want to start there in terms of what's working. And the reason is because, first of all, there's always elements of any system, of any process, of any learning that you're doing that is in fact working, if you'll look for it. And the tendency is, when we let our Fred stories run us, when we allow that to continue, and we allow Fred to come into play and run our show, what ends up happening is that we have the tendency to say that there isn't anything working, that the entire process, everything that I've been going for, is broken. Nothing works. It all sucks. And that just means that you're looking at the comparison between where it is that you are right now, or what you're feeling, versus where it is that you'd like to be way up here, and you're making it too far a comparison for that. And the reason you're doing it is because of your Fred stories in this neck of the woods down here, right? And so what we've got to do is we've got to start to break it down into bite-sized chunks. And there's always pieces of the system, if you'll look for it, that are working. For example, we can look at the fact that you're paying attention here. That's something working. The fact that you're now giving yourself a break and you're working through this in a process-oriented way, that's working. The fact that you're tic-tacking your way to success, that's working. Yeah? Right? The fact that you're allowing yourself to look at different things, and you're focused in on a process-oriented goal first so that you can build up the habits, that's working. The fact that, maybe what you've done when you take the inventory, when you did the executable inventory of your online business plan and you chose the right model, well, what's working is that you now know the type of business plan, whether it's a cash flow plan or a biz in a box type plan, or a builder type entrepreneurial building from scratch plan. You now have clarity on that. and you now know the differences, and you've broken that down, and you've selected the right model for you based upon your particular situation. That's all positive things. And then you figured out within that, right, when it came time to start breaking it down into the marketing plan and the web plan, the tech plan, and when it came time to breaking it down in terms of the traffic plan, what you may have discovered is that you were only really far away from, the issue. Maybe you had 2 of the 3 ingredients really strong. And so all of the 2 of the 3 ingredients are positive. Those are all working. But if you start to discard what's, looking at your Fred stories and saying, well, this sucks and this doesn't work, and and you let the Fred stories run your show, right? And you allow yourself to stay stuck there. Well, what ends up happening is that you continue to say, I wish there was a way out of here. And you stop taking inventory of the things that are working. And then you never notice all the things that you want to remember to repeat in light of things that are successful, that are empowering, that are giving you joy, that are bringing you happiness and peace of mind and excitement, and are filling up those confidence gas tanks, and giving you that certainty that you're on course. And remember, you're starting the doubling cube now. You're starting that penny a day, doubling it every day, and all of the things that are working are part of those things that you're going to be repeating, that you don't want to go back to ground zero and start all over again at ground zero then. So what we're doing is we're going to break it down into those individual pieces, right? Now, the tendency is to jump into, and so if we didn't take inventory, pardon me, I'm a little discombobulated here. If we didn't stop and take inventory, we would say the whole thing is broken, and that would lend more back to this kind of chaos crap and this activity where we're just grasping at straws. We're trying to do anything at any point in time just to, try to figure it out, try to make it happen. And we're grasping at straws then. And it sucks at that point. That's when we start to break it down, and we start to, things start to fall apart, right? And that's when is the danger zone. Now, the other things, there's always elements that if you're looking for it, there's always elements that you can find that are working. And I would use any excuse to get happy. And I would write that down, what's working. And you should have like 2 pages, 3 pages of, working, all the stuff that's working. And then ask yourself the question of what's missing. Now, what's missing, notice I didn't say what's not working. I didn't ask the question, why do I suck? I didn't ask the question is, why is this happening to me? How did I get here? What was all the things that, I got to figure out how I got here, why I got here. And it's a very specific point. And this is probably the hardest thing to keep in mind. And the most important is that you have to get into the habit of asking yourself, what's missing? Because what's missing gets you to focus in on the solution, with the idea being that you want to get up here to where it is that you say you want to be, that is going to point you in the right direction. It's not going to keep you focused in on the problem. It's not going to keep you focused in on all the crap that got you here to this point, all the Fred stories that are totaling up and that are making you feel bad about yourself. All of that doesn't matter. But if you're not asking yourself what's missing, it's going to predispose, it's going to take you out of the realm of possibilities of what's next and what's this simple action. So in light of what's working and those things that are working that I want to remember to repeat so that I don't stop doing the things that are working, that are bringing me closer to where it is that I want to go, I'm now going to ask myself questions about what's missing. Now, here's the key. I recommend that you don't do a list of more than a maximum of 5 things that might be missing. Why? Because that's the maximum that you can focus in on in that small time period of a week. Because if you focus in on 100 things or 5 things on a small time frame, like for this next hour, my things to do about what's missing for today, or that I have to get done today, are these 5 key things, because I want a quantum leap. I still am trying to get there in one fell swoop. But in fact, what I'm trying to do is slow the process down and focus in. And ideally, I would say in the beginning, look for that one big thing for the week and ask yourself, what's the biggest thing that's missing that I can do, that I think will bring me, that I'm hoping that I'm going to take a shot in the dark on this next process goal, will bring me closer to where it is that I want to be, which is up here. If my ultimate goal is up here of where it is that I want to be versus right down here, I'm not trying to get there in one fell swoop. I just want to move a little bit closer. And then next week, I'm going to ask myself, I'm going to use my WMN compass again and simply ask myself what's working now this week in light of where it is that I'm doing, what it is that I'm doing right now, where it is that I wound up in relationship to where it is that I want to be this week, right? So what's missing and what's next, it's usually very easy to see. If you'll focus in on what's missing first, the what's next part is really simple. And instead of it being overwhelming, instead of it being like, oh my God, I don't know what to do now, and what's the next step of the equation? Where do I go from here? All of this stuff. What you do is you take that one big chunk that you see is missing right now for the week, and maybe you've got as many as 2 or 3 for the week, but now you're going to break it down into a maximum. So start with, until you start building up the muscles and you start to recognize that the Fred stories, and you start R&Ding, and you can work and you can do more every week. Start with one big thing that's missing, and then in terms of what's next, break it down. Like what did you have to break down to execute what's next? A maximum of 5 things, and maybe it's only 1, 2, or 3 or 4. It depends on where you are, but break it down into a maximum of 5 executables of what's next, based upon that one big piece that you see missing, based upon where it is that you are right now on this journey, in relationship, not where you were yesterday or last week or last year or all the other past failures that you quote unquote have had or whatever, where it is that you are right now in relationship to where it is that you are looking to get to, and then what's missing in terms of over the next week that you can do, that big chunk that you can do, or that you believe that you want to do, that you're going to experiment with, that you're going to try to overcome some of those things to bring you closer to where it is that you say you want to go versus further away. Okay? And so what ends up happening is that you break it down, you break that big thing down into bite-sized executable, your action game plan of what to do over the course of your next week. And if you have more than 5 things to focus on for the full week, then you've got too big a, either you haven't broken down what's missing into small enough bite-sized chunks, or the what's missing or the what's next part is you're overwhelming yourself, and you're trying to, again, you want to get too far ahead. Instead of taking it in a 1 week increment, you're saying, all right, I want to get there in one fell swoop next week. And so I want to try to go all the way from down here all the way up here in one fell swoop next week. And that's why I've got this super long list of what's next, and a super long list of what's missing, and a super, like that. So these are why you want to start with process-oriented goals first, so that you can build up your muscles, so you can build the habit up of doing this on a regular basis. And then next week, you do it again, okay? So the idea is that you break it down into the bite-sized chunks. And so maybe in the beginning, you make good progress really fast, and it's kind of a straight line. And then all of a sudden, you do the next tic-tac is over here. And it's, in your mind, it's supposed to be, somewhere up here. Well, doesn't matter. What's working, what's missing, what's next, based upon this point up here, right? And so, because you're taking the inventory in a smaller bite-sized point of the equation, because you're taking inventory right here, and you know what? Let's move over to a bigger version of this so that you can see it. And because you're taking inventory and the game plan is right here, yeah, you might have taken a little step backwards, but you're not still getting stuck in all of that. So what's working in this case, you could be proud of, you could be excited. That's what's working is the fact that I didn't get way off course again. What's working is all the other stuff that's working. And what's working also is that I did some things, like I want to take inventory of the things down here that did work, that brought me closer to where it is that I say I want to be at the very tippy top instead of further away. And I want to make sure that I don't forget to continue to implement these things here. Because obviously what I did is I lost track of some of this stuff in my journey to move here. And so what we end up doing is we start creating the next step of the equation. And we get more back on course. And then we do this. Take a little step backwards a little bit, or whatever we feel. And then we do this. And then we do this over here. And then we do this. And then we do this over here. Maybe we take a little bit of an extra detour over here because we're still going through the learning curve. But as long as we're not taking on too many big chunks of the equation in there, what we wind up with is we don't have this rigmarole going on, because this can only happen if we're taking on too many things that we're trying to accomplish in X period of time, right? If the what's missing is too much, if we're not paying attention to what's working, if we take a quantum leap backwards and we get stuck over here, then that's all the stuff that we need to be cognizant of. And well, the good news is that now you know this. The good news is that because of these results, because of what we're doing here, because of that even if you get stuck temporarily over here, that you now know why you're there. You now know what was happening, why that was disconcerting to you. Right? So, that becomes part of the excuse to feel good. So you can say, well, this one was not too bad. I realized that I was having the tendency to take on too much too fast. And that's a positive. That's what's working. Plus, all this other stuff did in fact bring me closer, because if I look at it compared to where I am down here, if I look at this compared to where I was back, 2-3 weeks ago down here, and I compare myself here, I am much closer to where it was that I have made great progress, and I'm much closer to where it was that I say I want to go, as opposed to staying stuck in that journey of, I can't do this, and I'm not there yet, but I am making progress. And that's something to feel good about and to take an inventory of, right? Okay, so then what we do is now we're back on course. And we took that detour, and now we're back on course, and we made it just a little bit closer to where it is that we say we want to go. And then the following week, we do the WMN compass, and, it's kind of a parallel move, but yet, if you take a look, we're still zigzagging, we're still tic-tacking our way there, but in fact, we're still, we're closer than we were down here by a little bit, but we're still kind of, we need to take an inventory, and when we get into the what's working, what's missing, what's next for this week, now we start honing in on it, and maybe we go in down there, and then maybe it's this week it's over here, and then maybe it's, we take down here, and we're still making good progress, but we're now tic-tacking. And if you will start to build this up as a habit, and if you will start to implement this, what you will notice is that these zigzags become tighter and tighter to that straight line, because you're on course to creating that journey. You're on course now, and you're minimizing your learning curves. Why? How? Well, check it out. And now let's see if it just makes sense to you from the standpoint. Just give me 1 second here. Yeah. And see if it makes sense from the standpoint of that penny a day principle of compounding. So in the beginning, you had the tendency over here to have much wider variations, right? And as we start to make our way through it, we still have variations, but what's happening is that the learning curve, we've gone through it. So the penny a day, we're starting to compound our way to success. And we're now up at like day 17 and 18. We're making our way into day 20 over here of that penny a day, where now we're getting closer and closer. We're not at the 5 million mark here, where that penny turns into $5 million because of the compounding effect. But we are at, let's say, day 21 or whatever, where we're around 500 or $200 or so, and it's a whole lot better than the 1 penny that we were down here. And we're making progress, and we're taking note of that, and we're even down here, let's say. And so what ends up happening is that this line starts to flatten out. Why? Because it becomes more, as your learning curves start to flatten out, you've now allowed the compounding momentum to take hold, and that doubling cube to take hold in terms of how you're putting it into action for yourself, how it's starting to unfold and make sense for you. Okay? So that's the power here. And the only difference here is that when you were doing all of this kind of zigzagging stuff down here, let me put it as white, when you were doing all of this chaos down here and you weren't aware of what was going on, what you were really doing is you were doing a variation of this. where you make a little bit of progress and you're right back to day 0 again, and you're starting all over the compounding process at day 0. So all of this tick-tacking is bringing you back to day 0, when in fact all you have to do is allow yourself to make incremental success peaks. And in the beginning, we know that they're going to be wider and more variations. And as we get there, they're going to, as we start to have that compounding effect, what ends up starting to happen is that that line flattens out, that we're able to get there because we're now not starting all over again with that 1 penny a day or 0 pennies a day that we were at day 0. So if this is day 0 down here, we're not tick-tacking our way backwards here every single time, and we're not doing it here because we're stopping. We're saying what's working, what's missing, and what's next, not in comparison to starting all over again with 1 penny at day 1. We're talking about what's working, what's missing, what's next in relationship to where it is that we say, that you say you want to go, that you're trying to get to. What's working, what's missing, what's next this week in relationship to up here where it is that you're trying to get to. Right? Very simple, very straightforward. And so by doing it this way, yes, you're still zigzagging, and yes, you're always going to be off course, and yes, sometimes it's going to be off course by more than the beginning, and sometimes it might appear as though you're taking a step backwards. But if you're doing the what's working, what's missing, what's next inventory, and you're following that compass on a weekly basis, and you're asking yourself these questions in relationship to where it is that you say you want to go up here, right? That then, in fact, that's the process that's going to allow you to stop repeating. Now, you may sometimes go, instead of going from day 7 to day 8, you may go from day 7 to day 6. But now you're saying, okay, I took a little bit of a step backwards, but I'm not all the way back at day 1. So now I need to go to day, and maybe you make a bigger leap, and you because of what you did, and you took that inventory, and instead of going to day 7 again, you go all the way to day 8 because you're on that journey, and you're starting to compound it, and you're starting to say, where am I right now, today, when I'm asking myself the WMN compass today, not where I was at 1 penny back in the beginning, because I'm not going all the way back there. Where is it that I am right now today in relationship to where I want to get to up here? I hope this is all making sense to you, because it really is that kind of cut and dry. It really is that straightforward. And that's the way that you're going to be able to keep yourself on course, tick-tacking your way there in terms of those outer games, that action game plan of implementing the marketing plan, the technical plan, and your traffic plan to build out your online business, right? To create the right one for you, that it's not a question of if you can get to that point, but when. And you know that you can get there because it's just a matter of tic-tacking your way there and taking those incremental inventories. And this is about the execution, the implementation, the learning and doing part of the equation. Now, I told you that there's a 15-week process where each week I'm going to recommend that you do the WMN Compass from the action side of the journey to help bring you in from that side of the equation. And you're going to hear about in our next workshop the other tool, the other resource to help you enter the mastery zone and keep you on course in that confidence building, in that creating that certainty and creating the confidence and filling that up so that you know that you can learn what you need to learn, that you can compound, that you can start to get there. And so by doing it this way on a weekly basis, for 15 weeks, I've laid out a process to help you get through that journey on both sides of the equation according to each of the three parts of the equation, so that you can have a successful business, so that in the 15-week period, if you will execute this in the right way, that you will then be able to tic-tac your way to where it is that you'd like to be over a 15-week process, or in fact, it would be basically a quarter, a 90-day window into that, a little bit longer than a 90-day window into that journey to help you get there, but doing it in bite-sized chunks so that you're not trying to quantum leap it. So that's what we're going to be talking about in our next workshop stack for this week. And that's what's going to finish up the game plan, so that you can then have the tools to keep yourself on course. And then I will share with you the process and what I recommend over that each of the 15 weeks. And there's 5 specific points that I'm going to recommend to you that you focus in on, from both the action journey to building your successful online business, and the some specific things to focus in on each week, and to help you tip that seesaw, to help you R&D your Fred stories accordingly, so that they can all come into play for you in a systemized way. And then it's just a matter of putting it into action for yourself. All right, so that's what we have. I hope you're excited, and I hope you're executing this on a regular basis, and doing the learn and do simultaneously. See you next time. Talk to you soon.